this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I am joined alongside my co-host London Beth. And today we are hitting on what to look for in this upcoming minicamp hosted by the Chicago Bears. But before we begin, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Higher Level Camps.
HLC is the longest running boys and girls AAU program in the state of Wisconsin. HLC was established in 1995 by their founder and retired WNBA player Cheryl Moore. 27 years and counting. For more information, visit higherlevelcamps.com and say, Just Another Year Chicago sent you.
All right. We love Cheryl, though she is a Packers fan, and we are very excited to talk about the Bears today. So that might make her a little bit more upset. But, you know, Cheryl, it's what it is this year, especially with the continued holdout also of Aaron Rodgers. So with that, let's jump into a better topic, the Chicago Bears and what to look for in minicamp. Obviously, the hot topic to start off with, Justin Fields will again have all the eyes on him. Will he continue to shine like he did in rookie minicamp and in overall team minicamp like he did in OTAs? Are snaps under center going to be, running traditional single back I formation, plays that seem to be only negative from OTAs? What will we see in minicamp? Is he going to improve? Who's he going to work with in between minicamp and OTAs? A lot to discuss, but London, what are you looking for in regards to Justin Fields entering Bears minicamp?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm looking for are him, going for minicamp, and then we have training camp coming up here soon. What is he going to like? What are the things that the tiny little things from rookie minicamp and OTAs that he needed to fix? We put him on here and said he was the MVP. I think the consensus all over Twitter and just all over everywhere was the consensus that he was, the offensive MVP. He showed a ton of upside. Darnell Mooney was smiling mid-route. I mean, it was just absolutely great to hear that a quarterback, wearing the Chicago Bears jersey is getting all this just all this hype. And so that's really awesome. Flip side of that a little bit, and a couple of the negatives came out. Matt Nagy talked about it, because Justin Fields is human, everyone. He's not, he is human. And the biggest things were, he's not used to taking snaps under center. At Ohio State, he was completely all shotgun based. In high school, he was completely all shotgun based. That 1 year in Georgia, completely all shotgun based. And in the NFL, you still run traditional plays such as, single back, I formation, stuff like that. And with a great running back like David Montgomery, you're going to have those, formations, especially closer to the, end zone, goal line, all that kind of stuff. I guess he was struggling a little bit taking snaps under center. So those are those little things that I really look forward to this coming up minicamp with the veterans showing up and going into training camp and the rest of the summer. It's just these little things that he can work on. I would think primarily we will, and Matt Nagy's offense does have, I would say, over 60 to 70% is in shotgun. So I don't think it'll be a huge problem. But again, it's these little tiny things that Justin Fields needs to work on. And that should, again, make every Bears fan super excited that the only thing we need to worry about is him taking a snap from under center. For Sam Mustipher, his big Notre Dame self snapping it between his legs straight into Justin Fields' hands. If that's the most we need to worry about right now for him as, the rookie quarterback for the Chicago Bears, we should be very excited. I mean, yeah. I know, Nick, and I know one more thing you were going to hit on is, all eyes are on him. I know, Chris Collinsworth that is coming out with an interview with Matt Nagy, and Chris literally told Matt Nagy to us straight up. He was like, I've never talked about the Chicago Bears so much in an off season than I am right now.
Right.
And, the $1 million question they talk about is, when will Justin Fields start? Of course, Matt Nagy was real cryptic, and he threw out 4 or 5 different scenarios and all this other stuff, because they're not going to say anything now, even before training camp. But we as Bears fans, we should be very, very excited for this mini camp. I mean, I know we have some news about Allen Robinson coming up later in the episode. Just overall, Sam Mustipher getting a snap, that's our biggest concern.
Yeah, and a couple things I do want to hit on, playing devil's advocate here, with all eyes being on him, is he's going against a Pro Bowl defense. I mean, the entire defense has Pro Bowlers all over the place. He played against one Pro Bowler in Roquan Smith, and yes, he did do well. But take Roquan Smith and times that by about another 6-7 guys on the defensive side of the ball. So Justin Fields is in for somewhat of a rude awakening, especially, and this is good for him in his career going against one of the best defenses in the entire NFL to help get him trained so that when he goes to play the Steelers of the world, when he goes to play, other crazy defenses, I think we play the Washington football team this year, don't we?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I know that the Bears do have, again, the third toughest schedule in the NFL. So, they go against the Browns. That's another big defense that you got to be scared of. And, I think that Justin Fields is, he's going to do good. I'm not going to say great because it hasn't happened yet. I was about to say great. And then I was like, let's say good because I don't want to hype him up too much. He doesn't have a big head. He's officially a Bear for the next 4 years. Not too much of a cap hit. The future is here. That is fantastic. But kind of like I was writing this down as London was doing the introduction, was that could Andy Dalton lose his QB1 job, even though he was promised that by Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace? I'm saying no. He is not going to lose that QB1 job, at least week 1. He is not going to lose it. They want to do everything right with Justin Fields because Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace's job are still on the line. A lot of people are like, oh, this draft saved their jobs. They did not save their jobs at all. The McCaskies want winners. And as a lot of people would say, the McCaskies don't care. They want money. Okay, well, they're going to start losing money if they don't start winning some football games. And, they have to do this for the city of Chicago. They have to do it for themselves. And if they're trying to sell the team, they want to get the biggest bang for their buck. So I think that they are going to go with Andy Dalton in week 1 at QB1. I think that it's the best decision for the Bears. If Dalton struggles for the first 3 weeks, one of the 4 scenarios that Matt Nagy said, Justin Fields will end up starting. I don't see it happening. No, don't rush it. London, I know you are a fan of Justin Fields playing, but you're also kind of in the same boat as me. So kind of just quickly, run me through what you're kind of thinking, considering, all the hype around Justin Fields and everything, but also considering Andy Dalton.
Don't rush it. I mean, I know we talked off air and I know like on our script and everything we talked about it, and we're going to continue to preach that on, just another year Chicago, especially when we're talking about the quarterback position of the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields. Do not rush this. You know what I mean? I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like, I'm very excited that, him just taking snaps under center is the only negative he's had so far. But again, minicamp and training camp are 2 different beasts compared to rookie minicamp and a volunteer OTAs. You know what I mean? He hasn't gone against our best players on defense. He hasn't, seen the grueling summers, and all that kind of different stuff that's going to happen when this minicamp happens and then training camp. So I agree with you. I expect this minicamp and I expect training camp him to struggle a little bit. I expect him to kind of come down to reality and understand that he still is a rookie quarterback in the NFL with a top 5, top 10 defense in this league. And I'm honestly hoping and praying that happens because I don't want him to go in with such a huge head. And even though he won't because he's calm and collected, I don't want this to get so much bigger. And then they start him week 1 and the Rams and Aaron Donald completely dominate him. And then everybody just freaks out. Because Chicago would freak out. So I agree. Don't rush it, but I am very excited to see him throw into Darnell Mooney more. I'm very excited to see, him going up against, our defense and, running from Khalil Mack because Khalil Mack's a big man and he's never ran from somebody like Khalil Mack every day over and over and over again.
So I'm happy you brought that up really fast because our next topic is starters to look for. And kind of like this is going to lead into it. So Justin Fields has had unbelievable defensive ends on his team in college. There's a guy named Chase Young. I believe Nick Bosa was still at the Ohio State during Justin Fields wasn't a starter yet though, I believe. But in practice, he still had to go against these kind of guys. So Justin Fields has always had the good guys, the bad good guys on his team. He hasn't had to worry about, 300 pound, 3% body fat, 6'5" dudes, running at him. So, starters to look for in regards to that is, I know you have number 1, talk about Allen Robinson. I'm going to go to defensive starters to look for. I'm going with Robert Quinn, because Robert Quinn has a lot to prove to the city of Chicago. He has a lot to prove to his NFL legacy, because if he slumps, goodbye to the Hall of Fame. Am I saying Robert Quinn's a Hall of Famer? If he played like he did in Dallas the next 3 years in Chicago, Very likely. I mean, it makes a couple Pro Bowls, gets one more, small, short, but big contract. But, a defensive starter to look out for besides Roquan Smith is Robert Quinn. And I am very excited about this guy. Alex Brown a couple days ago said, someone asked him, hey, who are you excited to see this season? He goes, Robert Quinn, my guy is going to come out there and he's going to be a monster this year. He seems healthy. He looks like he's in great shape. We were very upset he didn't come to OTAs. Again, he's a veteran, so I don't think he had to as much, but he would have definitely earned the respect of a lot more of the younger guys, at least out of the gate. But, and then that helps Justin Fields out. When you have 2 Pro Bowl defensive ends, including Eddie Goldman and Akeem Hicks, all 4 of those guys rushing at also a young offensive line, that's big and helpful. So I'm really looking forward to that this upcoming training camp. But London, before we go into Allen Robinson, I know that's a big topic that everyone's waiting for. Who are you looking for from the defensive side of the ball besides Roquan Smith?
This is what the one thing I'm looking for is to see what our defensive secondary looks like. Okay. Yes. Jalen Johnson didn't show up to OTA. Desmond Trufant, who we just got for the Lions, who was a phenomenal cornerback at the Falcons, kind of had an off year on the Lions, just kind of like a 1-year contract thing. He's coming back to a really good defense. Can he go back to his Falcon years? We don't know. Does he still have anything left in the tank? Eddie Jackson, Gibson's back. Like and I know we'll talk about some other, younger players on that defense, but what later in the show, but what I'm really looking for, Jalen Johnson, Desmond Trufant. Right now, they are starting corners. How are they going to gel? Does Desmond Trufant have still some left in the tank, some energy, something he can bring up from his Atlanta days? And is Jalen Johnson, did his rehab go well? Is he looking quick? Is he looking fit? Is he ready to be the number 1 corner now that Kyle Fuller has left and gone to the Denver Broncos? I mean, those are the 2 biggest players to me. I agree with you with the Robert Quinn. But what is our secondary going to look like? Because in the NFL these days, everyone passes the ball. And if Jalen Johnson, just lost a little bit from that injury and is still recovering, that's going to be devastating for us. And if Desmond Trufant played like he played in Detroit, that's even going to be worse.
Right. And that's something that we definitely need to look out for. And I know one of your guys we're going to talk about in a little bit, Tony Graham Jr., this could be his time to shine. But so the defense is looking very similar even without Kyle Fuller. I mean, it's a giant piece that's gone and you kind of were just hitting on it. But I don't think this Bears defense is going to be any worse. And they weren't bad last year. They got better. They're going to be better this year. And there is no doubt about that. I know a lot of people are like, they're getting older. We've said they're getting older, but they have the right guy in at defensive coordinator, the right guy that is going to do what Ryan Pace builds defenses to do. Chuck Pagano was a good filler. He was a mentor, but Ryan Pace also wasn't the most confident in him. And Pagano almost got got chopped. He was almost out. And they were like, you know what? We're in the playoffs, or we're making a playoff push. Let's keep him, so on and so forth. The Bears defense is looking much better for next year. I'm very excited about it. And a lot of people keep forgetting that Eddie Goldman is back. We have Bile Nichols. Like, that is a very scary front 4. And then Danny Trevathan and Roquan Smith in at the linebacker. And then you have the secondary. This team is going to be very good on the defensive side of the ball again. And they have to stay healthy, especially against this schedule. Even though Aaron Rodgers might not be a factor this year in the NFC North, you still have Kirk Cousins. He won on Monday night. He broke the curse. You have Jared Goff, who has beaten the Bears before, not by much, but he has beaten the Bears before. So you have to still be worried about the NFC North. You're also playing, a bunch of other teams with, guys with the names of Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson. A lot of the Bears do have a tough schedule, and this defense needs to stay healthy. It needs to play together as a whole in order for the Bears to succeed. What are you seeing, London, though, in regards to, I know you kind of hit on it before, but what else are you looking at from a defensive perspective in regards to this team?
Just how they gel. Roquan Smith again should have been a Pro Bowler. He was the best linebacker in the NFL. I will absolutely go to my grave with that. Statistically proved, like, stats don't lie. Going back to what Cheryl says about basketball all the time, stats do not lie. And Roquan Smith was the best linebacker. How is he going to take that next step? Is Eddie Jackson, going to rebound back? I mean, he has the most interceptions returned for touchdowns, and he got kind of snubbed on 2 or 3 returns last year with penalties. But he was a little bit kind of off. He looked a little off. He wasn't that like vocal, swaggy guy towards the end of last year. Is he going to be back? And then the number one person, and you alluded to him a little bit, but I want to remind Bears fans of this gentleman, and his name is Eddie Goldman. He was out of Florida State, a steal, I think, in the 2nd or 3rd round. Right. He was an absolute dominant defensive tackle that we signed to a long contract so early. We got him for an absolute steal. He opted out because of COVID, which I completely understand that, that was their choice and he had family and stuff like that. He is going to be back. I expect him to be fit. I expect him to be ready to go because we did lose a little bit of depth, losing Harris, to the Jaguars and so on and so forth. If Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman are healthy and ready to go this season, look out. You're not running the ball. You're not running the ball on the Chicago Bears. You're not running the ball on the Chicago Bears.
That's nearly 700 pounds of 2 dudes that is just squashing your 200-pound running back. So just watch out now. But let's go back to the major topic. I know people have been definitely waiting for it. Allen Robinson in attendance. Earlier today, he released a video of him working out hard this offseason. He looks great. He doesn't look like he slowed down at all. He looks better. And this is just from workout video. I mean, he looked like Rocky Balboa, dark room, hoodie, hat, putting in work, sweating. He was at Hallis Hall today, June 14, 2021. So fears of a holdout have been calmed. Also posting that video, he looks ready to go. And he is saying that he will be back at Hallis Hall working out regularly. So no longer at a private gym starting tomorrow, Tuesday, June 15th. If I said July 14th, my apologies. June 15th, 2021. So big news. And no one was expecting them to have a holdout. And at least from our perspective, London and I, we weren't too worried about it because he had the franchise tag. He has Justin Fields. Ryan Pace and those guys have definitely put a lot of hype into this team. And this team isn't in, we're hanging on by a thread mode. They've kind of knitted themselves a nice little blanket here. So I think that Allen Robinson posting that video gives fans hope, and that's just only going to create even more hype around Bears universe. How does this, I know London, you and I weren't really worried about it, but did this give you any more confidence? What do you see in Allen Robinson for sure being in attendance? How does that make you feel?
It shows that we have a team. It shows that we are going to have a team. And honestly, it kind of puts a little bit more comfort, but also excitement into Justin Fields. Because I don't know if I think I'd be singing a different tune for these past couple of weeks if we had only Andy Dalton and Nick Foles on our roster. Allen Robinson maybe might have held out. He might have not shown up to these kinds of things. It was Allen Robinson and this whole idea that he might not show up to minicamp or, hold out a little bit in training camp was kind of like an untalked about. No one said anything. It was just kind of this dark mystique over all the Bears news. Everybody was just everybody was just knocking on wood and didn't want to say anything because they didn't want to see it happen. And then it's confirmed, he will be there. He's going to be back in Hallis Hall working out. He looked great on that video, but I again kind of give this to Ryan Pace. We had another great draft. We brought in an electrifying rookie that out of every quarterback Allen Robinson has ever had since Penn State, probably the best quarterback he's ever had.
Probably the best.
Probably the best. I mean, Blake Bortles, I don't know who his quarterback, maybe it was Christian Hackenberg maybe at Penn State. I don't really know.
A guy that owns a State Farm agency now.
Exactly. And then, and then he had a bunch of quarterbacks for the Bears. He had Nick Foles, Trubisky, so on and so forth. So I don't think Andy Dalton, he would have just been another guy on, Allen Robinson's bad quarterback, belt notch. But flip side of that, I think Ryan Pace kind of, saved this. I think if Justin Fields performs, Allen Robinson isn't going to want to go anywhere, and him signing that franchise tag, he won't regret it. So I'm really excited. I'm glad he's back. He looked great. Everybody, I know Nick said that he'd put the link for the video that he posted on Twitter somewhere on here. Go watch it. I mean, he looks great. He looks absolutely great. Am I right, Nick? Does he not look great?
He looks slim. He looks fast. Again, that video will be in the description. It is linked to Twitter. It is also posted on Allen Robinson's Twitter, so go give that a look. But yeah, I'm very excited for this guy. But London, really quickly before we close out today, I want you, and then we're going to go into who's our MVPs. I want you to kind of hit on, you have a good list here. So I kind of want to let you kind of, talk about these three. Well, one of them's a group, but the next three people / groups to look out for in minicamp. And I really like who you've chosen because you were just talking about how Ryan Pace saved this ship yet again. And Bears fans, of course, are always going to blame the first guy. They're going to blame Ryan Pace, even though Pace has done a fantastic job saving this Bears franchise. Time and time again, he walked into a complete disaster, and it took him a while, and it's just like the Chicago Bulls. It's going to take a while, but it's getting there. So I want you to hit on these next three topics really fast, London, about who other to look out for during minicamp.
Yeah, other people to look out for in minicamp. I'm going to go actually bottom to top here on my list. Look out for the offensive line. Are they going to continue to grow together? I mean, chemistry on the offensive line, I know we've talked about it, Nick, in past episodes, is so important. I know from my college days, I know a lot of people who played offensive line understand the guards, the tackles, the center, them just being like this honestly helps the offensive line so much. And are they going to keep eating together? I hope so. You know what I mean? As long as if they're big, ready and mean and full, I am so ready for this offensive line. Next person, Cole Kmet. A lot of people were saying that, he was another kind of MVP caliber for OTAs. He's looking really good. He trained with Jimmy Graham in the offseason down in Miami. What is he going to look like now? Like you said, now that the starting defense is going to be there and he's not just running against all these rookies and stuff, how is he going to look? And is he going to continue to grow and become a dominant tight end, for the Chicago Bears that we really haven't had since probably Mike Ditka, which is ridiculous to say.
Watch out now.
It's probably true. And then the last one, but also I think the most important, there's a little bit of buzz and news going around about Tony Graham Jr., the corner we drafted in the 6th round out of Oregon. He was a steal. Okay. Everybody said, hey, this guy was a 2nd to 3rd round talent, slipped to the 6th round. This is a classic Ryan Pace steal. So I expect we expect him to possibly start in the nickel, move our way around to, possibly playing, if Desmond Trufant looks like he does with the Detroit Lions, move that way. But honestly, watch out for what Tony Graham Jr. does against the starters and going in and out, with maybe the first team, second team defense.
Yeah, I totally agree. This guy has been very under the radar, but there's been a lot of buzz and everyone's starting to go, okay, Tony Graham Jr., I like this guy a lot. I agree. I'm happy that you wrote this list down. I think we've definitely talked highly about Kmet. We've talked highly about the offensive line, but Tony Graham Jr., we haven't hit on too much. And I know that you're a big fan of him. Another great steal by Ryan Pace. King Pace always seems to work his magic in those late rounds, and there's no denial about that. But with that, let's close out. Before we close out, minicamp MVP prediction round 1. London, I've kind of already hit on my guy, so I'll kind of let you take the pace because you don't even have it. I don't even know who you're going with right now. So who are you thinking right now is going to be MVP of minicamp?
I'm going the guy who lives rent-free in Jalen Ramsey's head. I'm going Darnell Mooney. I think he's going to take a ginormous step into this second year. I think him being at the OTAs, the volunteer OTAs, going to be at minicamp, training camp. I honestly, of course, everybody's gonna be like, oh, you should give it to a quarterback, whatever. Darnell Mooney, I'm predicting will be the MVP. I think he's going to absolutely dominate this coming up year. So I'm saying for minicamp, Darnell Mooney, Jalen Ramsey's dad.
Lock it, drop it, pop it. Jalen Ramsey, you are in big, big trouble come week 1. And we're going to keep saying that because it is still in his head. If a Bears fan would randomly, Tuesday afternoon, just be like, hey, Jalen Ramsey, you ever know of Darnell Mooney? He would be like, and then just start going crazy on his phone. So I think that we should just start a, Jalen Ramsey train and see how many people he will block. Jalen Ramsey train. Make sure you tag him, say what you want to say, blah, blah, blah. And he's going to go, these Bears fans, man. And then hopefully other NFLs get in on it. But quickly, right before we close out, my MVP is going to be Robert Quinn. He has to be the MVP of camp. He has to look good. He has to gain our respect back. it is hanging on by a thread. I give him the benefit of the doubt that playing injured is a very hard thing to do. He did come in clutch in very key moments at the beginning and end of season. I know there was a very long stretch where he didn't have a sack or a pressure for, I think it was like 5 or 6 weeks. But again, he had a lot of personal issues going on, still showed up to be that threat to that game plan because you have to plan around him. And the times that teams did not plan around him, he did really well. So Darnell Mooney, Robert Quinn are our first round of minicamp MVP predictions. We are very excited again that Allen Robinson will be coming back. We are hoping Justin Fields continues to grow and that Andy Dalton hopefully still has that QB1, status week 1. But who knows? Because Matt Nagy changes his mind every single day. And that's okay because that's Matt Nagy and that's just what Bears fans have gotten used to. But with that, thank you very much for joining into this first edition of Minicamp Review for the Chicago Bears. My name is Nick Brody, joined along my side my co-host London Beth, and we will see you guys next time.